Title belts to Hall of Fame. Doug and Tommy carved the name. Fists of fury and hearts of gold. Every story, every fight retold. Tales of glory, laughter, pride. Tennessee warriors with hearts open wide. In the ring or on the air, legends living without a care. On the mic they roar, on the mat they soar. Dangerous conversations, fans wanting more. Podcast kings ruling the waves. Memphis wrestling raising the stage.
Hey everybody, welcome back once again to Dangerous Conversations with Dangerous Doug Gilbert. And Doug, it's been a while since we've had a one-on-one episode of Dangerous Conversations.
Jim, what did you tell me? How many weeks did we go straight with just me and you? It was, maybe remember?
I think we did, it was like 16 or something before Tommy joined, I think, something like that. I'd have to go back and look, or maybe it was more than that. I don't know. It all kind of, it's all a blur. Like, I can't believe, like, it popped up in my timeline of the day that it was been a year since we did the thing in Jonesboro where we first announced that this show was coming in August. And I can't believe it's, I don't know, in some ways it's hard to believe it's a year, but then again, in other ways, I don't know, it feels like we've done this a long time. So,
and then when you left Jonesboro, you said, Doug's not going to do this, didn't you?
I never thought that, but I had other people telling me that. And then you told me about 6 or 8 weeks in, you're like, I didn't think I'd do this more than twice. And I was like, oh, hell.
No, what I tell you, my wife said.
She said that.
Yeah.
But at different times, you said that you were shocked you've made it this long. So,
yeah. But anyway, I think it's cool, though. Like I said, I like talking to all the fans and everybody listening and everything. But it's cool. Kind of get your story out and everything, because everybody else puts your story out, but it's not the right story.
Exactly. This is a chance. People hear things about you and Tommy and different stories. That's their version. So here, if people want to know what really happened, they can come here and listen. And we enjoy having Tommy with us, but Tommy is off this week taking care of some business, and we decided that it's finally time to talk about some things. But before we get there, we got something else we want to announce, right?
Well, and you also know, Gene, the storm just hit at Myrtle Beach and everything. Yes. And knock on wood, Tommy didn't have any damage or anything but the storm come down through there and everything. But we're glad he's doing good and there aren't any damage for him. So that's a good thing.
Yes, absolutely. So There's quite a few things people have asked about, but one of the things people have been asking about on the Facebook page, on the X, and different emails, they're wanting to know how they can get a signed copy of Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert, the uncrowned king of professional wrestling. So me and you have gotten together and figured out that we are going to do a live virtual signing online Sunday, July the 27th. It'll be at 6 p.m. Central Time. And we're going to live stream that across Facebook as well as the Retro Wrestling Archive YouTube channel. So you'll be able to watch it there. So what people will need to do, if you want to order a signed book, Doug is offering up a copy of the book signed by him, as well as a photo, an 8x10 photo of Doug signed by him of your choice. And it's $50 ship, which is an amazing price for that whole package deal there. So you can go on, and from the minute you hear this up until we'll say the day of, but you'll need to get your order in before noon on Sunday, July 27th. But the earlier you get it in, the better. Doug's got quite a few copies of the book, but still, it's a limited amount. So the first come, first serve. Whoever orders first, that's who's going to get the books. And if he runs out before then, if you wait until day of, you may not get one. But you can go on Venmo and pay at Real Doug Gilbert on Venmo, and that's how you can send your payment across. Like I said, $50, and that covers the book, the picture, and the shipping. If you have any questions about it, of course, you can always send an email to douggilbertpodcast@outlook.com. But what you'll be able to do the day of the signing, you'll be able to go on to the live signing. You don't have to be there. If you pay ahead of time, it'll get signed. It'll get shipped to you as long as you include your shipping address and everything. But if you choose to be on there, you'll be able to get in the comments, ask Doug your questions directly, and he'll try to interact with everybody as he's signing your book and your picture. And I know you love doing these things, Doug, and this kind of opens it up. It's great to go meet people in person, but this kind of opens up to anybody anywhere can take part in this.
Yeah, Gene, like I said, it's cool to talk to fans and from the past years and everything. And man, it's and like I said, we get to tell our story. You've heard everybody else's story that's not really correct, but anyway, you get to hear it from us, and we get to talk to you and interact and everything. I think that's real cool. But like you said, there is a limited number of books, so if you go ahead and place your order with Gene, you will get your book, get it signed, get a picture. If you want a picture of Dangerous Doug Gilbert, if you want a picture of the Memphis Mafia, if you want a picture of myself, my dad, and my brother together, you can get any one of them.
Yeah, we'll try to get some samples up on the Facebook page and the Twitter. I still call it Twitter, but X, I guess it is now, of what pictures will be available. Of course, it's that classic Memphis Mafia is one of them. And,
you better call it right. That Elon Musk won't let you in on his new America.
That's right. We'll get booted off there. Or I'll get booted off there, not we.
Yeah, what is it now? America, the new it's gonna be Democrat, Republicans, and America is something I saw today.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a big news day today as we record this earlier in the week than what you're hearing it. But this would be a whole different podcast if we got into all that. But
you ain't kidding. I better shut up.
But yeah, a lot of interesting news today. But a lot of people have been interested in getting a copy of the book, getting a signed copy of the book. So this is a great opportunity to do that, along with a signed picture. There's that really cool picture where it's Doug, the Dark Patriot, and Freddie all on one picture there. And I know that's been popular at the conventions as well.
Yeah, that's really cool also. There'll be a bunch of different, like you said, you can put those up and people can see them and everything. But like I said, just interacting with the people. And like I said, I hope everybody enjoys the book as much as we did writing it and everything. I mean, it's a cool book, and I think it's great and everything. And like I said, I mean, it's I hope everybody enjoys as much as I did and do. Yeah,
me too. Like I've gotten the opportunity now to go to some shows lately and had some copies of the book to sell and to be able to talk to some people about it. And people have had some really interesting questions. And then some people have come up and said, hey, I bought it. I ordered it and I've read it. I've enjoyed it. I didn't know this about Eddie. I didn't know this story. So people are learning things that they didn't know, which is the whole point of this, right?
Yeah. I mean, you wouldn't know if it's stuff that happened in the dressing room that I'm telling and everything. I mean, cool stories that happened on the road and everything. I mean, that's stuff that we only know. I mean, myself, my brother, and like when Tommy was with us, stuff that only us three knew and everything. I mean, it's just a cool deal.
Absolutely. And, I had always followed, Eddie's career and yours and your dad's and kept up with everybody. But I still, man, as we were getting prepared and writing this book and I was doing research and I was going through, matches and results, I still learned a lot of stuff, people that I didn't know Eddie wrestled and places I didn't know Eddie wrestled. And, me being a super fan of sorts, I still learned a lot in the process of work on this book. So if you're a fan of Eddie and want to learn more, or if you're a young fan that, hey, you've heard the name, but you want to know more about him, this is a great way to learn straight from his very own brother. And I dare say no one else on earth knew Eddie Gilbert better than Doug Gilbert. Is that a fair statement, Doug?
That's definitely fair. That was my best friend and everything. He always had my back, and I had his. And man, it was just a really cool friendship. I mean, he was my brother and everything, but I mean, we really got along well. We traveled together, we lived together a lot of the time, and everything. I mean, we had a blast on the road. It's just, I mean, it was a ball. People just couldn't imagine. I wish people could imagine and could have times like that, because it was just so cool, Jim.
Yeah, it's really great you guys got that opportunity to travel together and spend the kind of time you did. And speaking of that, you know, I told you people have been asking about a virtual signing, but the other thing that I've gotten emails, I've gotten messages on Facebook and X and different places. Everybody's wanted to know, hey, what did Doug think about the Dark Side of the Ring episode about Eddie? And so, you know, we've kind of put off doing this for a variety of reasons. And, you know, and usually when Tommy's sitting here, we usually try to talk about things that, you know, it kind of involve both of you as much as we can.
Right.
But, you know, we decided since Tommy, you know, was away this week, this would be a perfect opportunity to sit down. And before we get into, did you like it? How did you feel the final product came out? I want to talk and hear you, you know, tell everybody more about how this came about, how you were approached on the front end of this initially, and how long back it was.
It actually was, I was approached at St. Louis at the SICW, what's his name? The
Herb Simmons?
Herb Simmons' show, yeah. Or it's actually what was his show and his signing deal that he had. He brought myself and Tommy in to sign and everything at his WrestleCon deal and everything. And I had a great time at that. And Herb is such a great guy. I mean, he's I think the last old school promoter. I mean, you know, it was him and our buddy Bert and was the last two, and Herb is the last one now. Man, he's a great guy. He's good to the guys and takes care of them, and he old school promotes and draws and everything, and he's just a real good dude. But anyway, I got approached up there at the SICW in St. Louis, and the people that approached me said that Eddie was one of the most requested guys that they'd ever had, that they hadn't been able to reach no agreement on. And they said, would I please think about it again? And, you know, thinking about it, I told them I would call them. I'd touch base after I got home and after I thought about it a little more. And, you know, I thought, gee, if there was a perfect time, you know, it was 30 years that my brother passed away. If I was going to do it, that would be the time. But the reason that I'd always told him no before was because a lot of stuff that had come out on there was bad and was negative. I mean, basically, I'm going to say, what do we say, 90%, Gene? Or
at least 85%. 90 is probably fair, honestly.
And but anyway, I mean, they was real nice people. But I mean, I know what they're trying to do is get their ratings and everything, and I understand that and having to do that and tell bad stories and everything. But man, my brother was such a good guy and everything. I mean, if people knew him like I did and everything, I didn't want nothing to tarnish his image and everything. So I was always against it before, but I thought, it's been 30 years now, and if he's still one of the most requested guys that people get with them about. I thought, well, maybe I do need to tell this story. If there was ever a time, maybe it's now. And I thought, and I wound up sit down and talk to my wife about it and everything, because I just didn't want anything bad to come out of it and everything. And I thought, well, I'm going to tell my side. Like me and you just said, my side of the story. Everybody's got their side and everything. And I knew my brother better than anybody did. and
for sure.
everything. So that's when, like I said, what you asked was where did they approach me at? It was the SICW signing in St. Louis, and that's how we got together. They had called a bunch of times before, but I just told them no, that I wasn't going to do it. And I agreed to do it in September. They came and filmed at my house for about 12 to 14 hours. Now,
Wow.
and this is a show that don't have, but what is it, Gene? 40 minutes or 38 minutes after?
Yeah, it's like 42 minutes when you pull out the commercials.
18, right? 18 minutes commercials, 42 minutes, and so they filmed 12, 14 hours, and I'm thinking, you're filming 12, 14 hours. I won't be in this thing for 2 minutes, because they had the list of on and on that they was going to interview and everything. And I thought, I won't be in this for 3 minutes, and it's going to take 12 to 14 hours. And that's what they say was 12, 14 hours and everything. But I wound up being in a lot more than 2 minutes or 3 minutes or something. I don't know how many minutes I was in it, but I watched it back the other night. And actually, we did interviews and went through Eddie's pictures, briefcases, a couple briefcases actually, wrestling gear, and went to the cemetery. I figured they would show about 10 minutes since they interviewed so many others. Well, actually, I figured they'd show 5 minutes and everything, but they showed a lot more than that. But that's how it all come about, and then I want to get with Gene. I'm sure you got some questions and everything, but myself and my mom had started a book in 1999, and it was still hard on my mom that my brother's passing. It's still hard on her to the day that she passed, but we'd started writing it. I think it wasn't a good place, a good time for her and everything. And but at first it was, but then it wasn't. So we stopped and everything. And then I'd heard that you had wrote a book about it.
Yeah.
And I thought, and then when me and you met up in Jonesboro and everything, we got everything in motion about the book that we wrote. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I not to get way deep in that, but like I remember it was probably around 2010 or 11, reaching out to your mom and dad on Facebook about the idea of I wanted to write a book about Eddie, and was very adamant about it. I wanted to be a positive book. Like my whole motivation for writing this is like I don't like a lot of the things that are out there and a lot of the narratives that people give, and just the fact that some people are so misinformed about how he passed and the details and everything that surrounded it. Because I doing the podcast, I knew Ken Wayne at the time and had heard his side of that and had talked to a lot of different people, Bruno and different people. And she told me then, she's like, yeah, me and Doug have worked on one. And she's like, I don't know if we'll ever get through it. She said, but as long as in the end we can read it and approve it before you put it out, we'll work with you on it. I said, absolutely. That's, like I said, I wouldn't want anything out there that you guys wouldn't approve of. And at the time, you were traveling back and forth to Japan a lot. You were doing a lot of wrestling, and your mom said, like, I don't know that Doug's really ready. That's why we started working on the book. She's like, I don't know if he's really ready to do that right now. So me and you never got a chance to talk back then.
Right.
And so I had some things going. I went through a divorce. A lot of things happened in my life, and I just kind of set it aside. It was on a hard drive that got lost, and I think that was meant to happen, man. I don't think,
Yeah, I think so too. And like I said, Gene, I mean, it all started, and I think when me and you come together, we knew that the Dark Side of the Ring wouldn't be able to cover Eddie's career in less than an hour.
Yeah.
So we decided to finish the book.
Yeah.
And everything. So we got the book finished, covering all the territories in time to be released when the episode came out in April. So that was actually accomplished, and we didn't think we would be able to.
Which was, I was gonna say, it was quite the accomplishment, honestly.
Right. And I mean, because you don't just, I mean, me and you went back and forth, and you'd send me this, and I'd send you back what I'd write, and you'd send it back to me, and I want you to be happy with it as well as myself and everything. And but I think it wound up. Thank you. I mean, you're a great guy, and what you've done, like I said, like me and you said, I don't think I would be on here 2 weeks, or I think my wife said that, and I think I've said it before also. But man, I've actually enjoyed. I like interacting with the fans, old school fans, and everything. And like I said, I was never a big guy to go out and take pictures, or Tommy or my brother would have to drag me out a lot of the time and everything. But I was brought up by that. If you go out, you're just kind of all the time. You're just kind of one of the guys. You stay away and everything. Yeah. But it's cool. Like I said, I think us coming together and getting this book done, I think this was a cool thing. And like I said, and they wasn't going to be. They could do 6 Dark Side of the Rings or 6 episodes of whatever you want to call it, and they wouldn't be able to get all of Eddie's career stuff in.
No. I mean, so my dad got a copy, and he sat and read it in a couple of days' time, right. And he called me, and he said, "Man, he's like, I thought I knew." Most of Eddie Gilbert's career, he said, but man, there was a lot of stuff I didn't know. But he said, I didn't realize how young he was when he passed. He said, when you read that book and realized how much he accomplished in that amount of time, he said, it's mind blowing. And I said, yeah, it really, really is. Like it's such a shame for so many reasons that, he didn't live longer than he did, but my goodness, he crammed a couple of lifetimes worth of living into that time, man. So that's really great.
I think so. And like me and you said, Gene, I mean, Dark Side of the Ring is known for airing the bad side of wrestlers. So the book was a way to tell the unedited side of Eddie's life. To me, that's why I wanted to do the book and everything, because and I thought I was just I was so leery, and I talked to you about it, about the Dark Side of the Ring. I asked you a few times, what did you think? Because I started to back out at the last minute, and I thought, no, I'm gonna tell my side of it and everything. But I mean, it was like I told you. What was it? They would ask me issues. They kept asking me those 12 to 14 hours. Well, what about the issues? And I said, what issues? But before the guys got here, on the phone with a couple of the people from them, that they would say that issues. And I said, well, what issues are we talking about? Which I want them to tell me what they was saying. Which people say issues in professional wrestling, they mean drugs or drugs, alcohol, all anything bad,
vices.
You're right, exactly. But maybe I looked at it wrong, Gene. I said I didn't see issues. I said when you have money and you have nice cars and you get along well and you live a good life, to me that's not issues. But I'll turn around and say this: we wasn't perfect and we didn't do everything right, but nobody was a bad guy, and we sure didn't hurt anybody else. And to me, I don't think we hurt ourselves. But like I said, they wanted to talk about things, and I told them, they asked me questions about doctors and drugs and stuff like that. And it's like I asked them back, which you didn't see this on there, but I said, do y'all fellas go to doctors? You know, we're professional wrestlers. We get thrown around every night and 2 times some days with TV and that night. I mean, and we're sore and everything. But I'm not making excuses. But like I told them, and I said this, I don't even know if it was in there or not. I think it was. But I look back on it. I don't like the word issues because me, it wasn't issues. But I mean, when our doctor would give us a prescription, if it said take 1, we might take 1, but we might take 2. But to me, that isn't issues. I mean, and looking back at it now, maybe I was looking at it wrong then. But I'm still looking at it today. And Gene, I don't really think it's wrong.
The thing I've talked to people about that have asked me privately, I've said, there's people who experienced, a car wreck, the magnitude of what Eddie was involved in, and spend the rest of their lives not even being able to go to work a 9-to-5 job and on pain medication just to function, just to go to the grocery store and to walk around their house. I'm like, Eddie was told initially that he might not walk. Then he gets told he's definitely never going to wrestle. Right. The man went back and had a wrestling career that rivaled anybody else's you can name after having that car wreck. And I mean, so okay, of course he had to. He's going to have some pain medication just to function with the pain that he suffered from having that wreck. And then when you add in taking bumps, the kind of bumps that Eddie would take, because he didn't half-ass it. He wasn't in there,
never. He worked hard every night. I mean, he would go. Like with Jerry Stubbs, go 60 minutes with different guys. He would go an hour and everything. Yeah. I mean, and go hard, not laying around or walking and talking. I mean, going hard with, and all the big guys that he worked with. Look at all the big guys in Watts' territory and WCW. And I mean, all around every territory he went to. I mean, he worked with all the top guys and everything. I mean, he never took a night off. I mean, that was, as far as in the ring, he freaking went. He'd go with the best of them.
But to circle back to something you said, so we started recording this podcast last August, and it was around in that time when, you told me was about to record or finished recording, and you're like, hey, Vice is coming next week to record. And that's one of the first conversations we had about it. And you kind of told me the backstory of everything, and you asked me what I thought, and I was like, Doug, I've watched every one of those episodes, and I'm like, man, they feed off negativity, man. I'm like, it's good exposure. It's good to, put Eddie's story in front of a new audience. I was like, but man, that's scary. And, I remember, you, like they came to your house and you showed them all that, all of Eddie's stuff and recorded, you invited me there while we were working on the book, and I got to see all that. It meant the world to me, like just the coolest thing ever. But I remember sitting there talking to you and like, I mean, it was the right thing to do. I said, but man, until this thing airs and we see every minute of it, I was like, I'm going to be, I can't imagine how nervous you are, because it's me, being your friend and being a fan of Eddie, it made me nervous, but you being his brother and then, you being the one that chose to do it, I knew that put a lot of pressure on you, but I thought, man, these guys seem like nice guys and they seem like they're coming from a good place, but I was like, man, if they don't pull something here that you're not expecting, it's going to be surprising.
And see, what shocked me, people had told me that they would edit like different stuff you said to make it sound like different stuff. But Gene, I can honestly say that they didn't do that with me and on my end of the speaking. And actually, when it was all said and done, after, me and you talked about it and I thought about it, like I said, I about changed my mind at the last minute and everything. But I thought, no, if there's a time, it's now. It's 30 years since my brother passed away. And I thought I wanted people to hear my side now. And I thought if anybody says something negative or whatever, then, you know, I might see them later and everything. But,
Right.
But I mean, you know, that part was what it was. But my brother was good to a lot of people, and he made a lot of people a lot of money booking them. Now, a lot of people don't want to say that, and they want. I mean, the negative people are not going to say that.
Yeah.
And everything, but I mean, we made a lot of money working for Watts, and when he was on the book committee, and basically he was the head booker when there was book committee. Nobody else come to the office in WCW but Eddie, and you know, so he was basically running that, and that was really cool. And I thought, I mean, you know, the angles like me and you've talked about before, like the they would have never been a Terry Funk versus Flair angle. Everybody talks about that being so cool. I mean, people don't know that was Eddie's doing. I mean, nobody would have done that. I mean, and Eddie got Flair to go along with it and everything, and I thought that was cool. Then that wound up getting Eddie a lot of heat because the angle that you saw on TV on WCW with painting the yellow streak down the guy's back. Flair's father-in-law got hot about it, and I mean, so what does that mean? Does that mean you're doing your job good, Gene? I mean,
exactly. Flair should have understood that. Like, dude, if your father-in-law had that reaction, the reaction that you're wanting fans to have, then you should know that this is working and that people are going to be buying that Great American Bash pay-per-view to see him get his hands, you know, on Terry Funk.
Right.
And, you know, and I know that had to mean a lot for Eddie because it did so much for it, revitalized Terry Funk's career. He had a whole second half of a career that he might not have had if not for that feud. I know that had to make Eddie feel good.
It did. It really did. And then, you know, I mean, you know, Eddie Broad also brought him to ECW.
Yeah.
And everything. And that was, you know, really cool too and everything. So that was all a good deal.
Well, that was the one good thing, knowing, and we talked about this, is like, all right, well, look, whatever this Dark Side episode ends up being, if it's not what you want it to be, if it's not what they're presenting it to be to you, you knew on the other side, you had this podcast, you had the book coming out, like you mentioned before, there was going to be a way to even it out. But man, I got to tell you, I subscribed to a certain app on my Roku just so I could sit there and watch it that night live. I usually see them a few days later or wherever I can find them, but I was like, I'm watching this one as it happens. You know, when it went off, my phone started blowing up and I had all kinds of people asking me, you know, what I thought about it, if I had talked to you and what you had thought about it, and if you had seen it prior to the live airing of it. And I told him, I said, Doug didn't see it before tonight. I do know that much. And I said, I don't know if he watched it tonight or not. I said, for me, having watched every episode they've done, this felt like one of the most fair representations I've seen, and there wasn't a lot of negative stuff in it. I thought that, you know, for 42 minutes, I thought it was as best as they could have told his story, and they used a lot of your stuff in there, and it didn't seem like they chopped up the things that you said.
Yeah, like I said earlier, they didn't think they used my words exactly as I said them and everything. Until you had good people that was in Eddie's life, like Darla, like Medusa. So I don't want to leave anybody out. You can throw in any more names that was in there, but they had a ton of people that they could. That's why I said I didn't think I would be on there very much at all and everything, but I was on there a lot more than I thought I would. And like I said, they was very fair. They didn't try to chop my stuff up or anything, but I told the guys when they was here at the house, and you know, I wanted it to be done right and everything. And I mean, I just want it to be a fair assessment of everything.
Ricky Morton was on there, and he was close with Eddie, and he had some good
right. That was
stories
about the Tupelo concession stand, Eddie and Ricky together there. That was so cool and everything. Like I said, I spent time with Ricky and stayed like I do with Tommy when I was a kid. I went out to Eddie and Ricky was a tag team, and I went out to Oklahoma and stayed the summer. And Eddie'd go out with some of the guys some nights, and I'd go home with Ricky and his wife and stay with them. And I mean, I had good times with Ricky. Ricky's a great guy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was proud to see they put him in there. I wish they could have worked Tommy into it, but you can't have everybody on there.
Well, that's me too, and that was one of the things. I mean, that I told him to that Tommy was supposed to be on. Tommy was the one that actually wound up talking me. I don't want to say talk me into it, but right before it was getting ready to air, I called him and said, Tommy, I said, this better be good. And he said, oh, I think it will. And I said, well, you wasn't even in it. And the deal at the get-go was I wanted Tommy in it. I was going to go to Myrtle Beach and do parts of it there and everything. And I wound up set everything up here and done it here, which they told me I could do it wherever I wanted. I mean, but I didn't want to carry stuff places. I wanted people to see. I wanted people to see my brother's stuff and some cool stuff that, like, as far as a booker that he wrote and everything, like for his crew and what to go by. And people thinks there's no rules, but he had rules and stuff. I mean, people thinks it's just the Wild Wild West, and we're all just outlaws. And at some point, maybe we are kind of outlaws, but there was rules to go by to draw money. And my brother, all he wanted you to do was be yourself, work hard, and draw money.
Yeah, that was. I mean, seeing a lot of that stuff that I got to see of Eddie's that you have was really cool. But like holding that briefcase, and knowing, all the places he took that, and all the great ideas that was carried around in that, that briefcase, and everything was super cool.
And see what was so cool, Gene, the one that I carried with me to Japan for years was one that he'd give me. It was like a ostrich skin or some kind of freaking $1,000 freaking something briefcase that he just gave me one day and everything when he got him and you one and everything. And that's where I kept all my work visa stuff for all the different guys that I booked in Japan and everything. And I thought, that still means the world to me. I've got it out there. Also, I meant to show you that way. You see, but I didn't pull it out and everything. But that was always just, like I said, me and my brother was so tight. But like I said, you had, friends and good people. There was good people on there telling stories, about Eddie and everything. And I mean, like I said, Ricky Medusa, Darla. You can go on with the names, but you had good people. And it's like the deal when me and you and Tommy went to Philadelphia. Todd Gordon come up to me and said, man, they just done that show on your brother. Said man, it was all good. I said, well, my brother was a good dude, Todd. And he said, well, yeah, he was, but I think Sandman's a good dude, and they made him look like crap. I said, well, I didn't really know what to say about that, but
yeah.
But I'm like I told you though. After I watched it and it was over, and I walked around a little bit and everything, and my wife asked me about it, asked me what I thought and everything, and I said, "This is what I'm going to say. If I think it's okay, I don't see how anyone else can think it's bad."
Yeah, for sure.
And everything. But then I think I talked to you about 2 days after you watched it. Is that fair? Something like that.
Yeah.
And you asked me what I thought, and I told you just what I said right then. And I asked you what you thought, and you told me what you had told Neil and everything. So to me, I think that everything with it was good. Like I said, I'd like to have Tommy in it, but you couldn't have everybody. But if they just knew Tommy was actually the one that, which I thought if there was ever going to be a time, it was 30 years. But Tommy actually talked to me and said, man, you know, it'd be good for these guys to hear about your brother's story.
Yeah.
And I thought, yes, it would. And if there's ever a time that I'm going to do it, now should be the time.
And they were telling the truth, because I know, like online on like their different accounts, every year after a season would end, they go, okay, we got a new season coming up. Who do you guys want to see? And there would be hundreds of comments, and you could scroll through there, and then you would just see, you know, name, Eddie Gilbert, and it would be spread throughout. You know, it was every single year from season 1 on. You know, every year people were lobbying, you know, for Eddie to be on there. So I'm glad that his story was able to be told on there. I'm glad you was able to be a part of it, and that you're happy with it. And I because eventually his story would have been told somewhere by somebody. And the fact that, you know, this is, you know, Dark Side of the Ring is considered a pretty, you know, significant source, especially like for younger fans to learn about people they may not know about. The fact that you were able to be directly involved with it and have some influence over the show is good, because eventually somebody would have got a hold of somebody that maybe you don't want telling the story, or, you know, and it might have been a whole different show if the wrong people who were there just to try to sensationalize things. Because, you know, there's certain people that they plug into episodes that always seem to have a bad story about everybody. You know, surprisingly enough. And luckily, a lot of those didn't make it into this one. Yeah,
that was, I think I made myself pretty clear with them, and would say still, I guess somebody could do something, but also I do have some good lawyers. But like I said, the cool deal about the book was that with that coming out and us knowing that they wouldn't get a, you know, I mean, like I said, you could do 6 to 10 episodes and you still wouldn't get my brother's career in shows. But anyway, but in a book that me and yourself wrote, we can get my version in unedited. Everybody can read the life story as I know it and everything. Exactly. And that's what I wanted to get out there and everything. Like I said, Tommy, I don't want to say talked me into it, but he persuaded me. And but I mean, and like you had said before, you know, it's cool for the people that didn't know my brother's story to know it and what he'd done in his life. And like I told people could live to be 70 years old and not do in their life what he did.
No doubt about that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm so proud of that we've got that out there. And, you know, I'm not one of these people that's, you know, I don't know. I don't try to read too much into things, but I do believe that sometimes that some things happen for a reason. If you get too deep into that, then you start picking things apart. Like, well, why did this happen? Why did that happen? Why did Eddie pass away young? Why did my brother pass away young? So that kind of thing, you can pick it apart. But I do felt that it did kind of happen for a reason, that I started working on this thing 15 years ago. Circumstances made me stop, and then we came together and got the opportunity to write this together. Because having started back then, I had the time to interview your mom and your dad and have some conversations with them that you might not have had in that context. I got a chance to reach out to Lance Russell through his son Shane, and we got some good quotes from Lance in there, and Jerry Jarrett, and some people who weren't around earlier this year when we were writing the book, who had some really great insight with Eddie, and, you know, were key parts of his story. You know, that I love the fact that, you know, Eddie would carry, you know, make those books of his booking as a young child and a teenager. And Right. He took those books to Jerry Jarrett, and Jerry Jarrett was like, this is good stuff. And, I think if Jerry Jarrett would have had his way, he would have probably steered Eddie towards a life of being a booker and a promoter and kept him out of the ring if he could, because he knew just how talented that Eddie was. And Eddie was a great wrestler, but, he had a unique mind.
Oh, he had a unique mind, but Eddie's love was for wrestling. I mean, it was for booking also. He loved booking, but he was, from when he was a 5, 6, 7 years old, he was going to be a wrestler. I mean, that was, that was his goal. And he watched my dad, and like I said, he took, he'd go and take pictures, and like he, always for Pro Wrestling Illustrated, for Bill Apter, and about 3 or 4 other magazines, but really for Apter more than anybody else. He'd write stories and take pictures, and see, people didn't know that part, about my brother and how he come up. And he, like you were saying about writing his angles and stuff when he was a kid and showing him Jarrett and everything. And knock on wood, Eddie, myself, grew up different from most kids. Being in the back of the Mid-South Coliseum around all the guys when we was just, 8 years old, from then on, and living the business and having your dad there. And, Jerry Jarrett and Jerry Jarrett's father-in-law being my dad's tag team partner. We was with all of them our whole life. Going up to the Jarretts and spending nights at Jerry's house with my dad, and them going out fishing on the lake and everything. But it's just, like I said, just the timing of all this was right. And I'm so glad. And to me, if I can say this episode was good, I don't think anybody else should be able to say it wasn't. And believe me, I was leery, and I think you knew that as it was coming up and everything. And I thought, because how people can change things and change what you say and cut out. And then see, I didn't really. Well, I thought about that because I'd heard people say it, but I told the guys when I was here taping, I said, there's not going to be any of this, because I'd heard that, like, there was 3 or 4 different stories I'd heard that, they really messing people up as far as cutting what they said and making it sound different and everything. But like I said, if I can say I was pleased with it, I don't think anybody else can.
Because there's some audio, I don't know what we'll ever do with this, but, your wife was recording the interviews, some of the interviews while they were going on. And they basically told y'all beforehand, like, look, don't do anything with any of this until this airs. After it airs, so be it.
Right.
And so I had gotten the opportunity to hear some of that. And I remember telling my wife, because I was nervous for a few different reasons. One thing was when they interviewed Tommy and then told you, like, we're not going to use Tommy because we don't think he has anything real interesting out of the story. And I thought, interesting or negative? Like, right. I thought, man, that's kind of concerning. I think I even told you that. I was like, I don't know, man, that's kind of odd.
Yeah.
But the only thing I could compare those interviews to, and you kind of referenced this earlier, is, they really kept pounding home the issues. And they kept asking you the same question in different ways over and over. And the only thing I could compare it to, I told my wife this, I said, it reminded me, I don't know if you ever saw those documentaries about the West Memphis 3, the Paradise Lost. They took them kids and they interrogated them for hours and hours and hours and hours. And finally they got the one kid to just finally basically just say yes to their questions, just to get them to leave them alone. He'd been in there for like 14 hours or something.
Right.
And he finally was just like, yeah, that's what happened. And they're just leading him through it. And I'm like, that's essentially what this felt like, almost as an interrogation. Like, we're going to keep asking this question until we can get, and this is what I felt. It didn't play out that way, but it felt like they were going to keep asking that question so they could get one take where you answered it in some kind of way where it could be construed in the way that they wanted it to be. And I guess because you never gave it to them, the answer wasn't there to give, that they kind of moved away from that. And luckily that wasn't, but I thought, man, that feels like that was originally the narrative of the episode. And I guess maybe after talking to you for all them hours, they're like, all right, maybe that's, maybe there's not as much here as we think there is. But boy, it wasn't from lack of trying.
Oh no, they believe me. They asked, and like I told you, with just me and you talking, that I heard that so much, and that kind of turned me off. On the phone calls before they come, it was said 3 or 4 different times. I said, y'all, you can ask me questions however you want. You can change the words, whatever, but my answers are going to be Doug's point of view and the way things work. And that's just the way I wanted to. I mean, Gene, I know how things work. And I mean, everybody's got their own story and everything. And like I said, on the thing, I said, we wasn't angels. We weren't angels. I've never said that. I just said people build a lot of things and want to say a lot of things. And a lot of people a lot of people was really jealous of Eddie. And in his short life, he done more than most of them would do in 3 lives. And I mean, he was just so smart as far as mind-wise booking and the wrestling business, and just a smart. Eddie was so intelligent, and like I said, and I don't think they said that played this part on there. They asked me what was one thing that people wouldn't think about him. I said he was shy, and people wouldn't think that about Eddie. But as far as just us being out, as far as wrestling and everything, no, not shy, but just me and him out around. He didn't, it wasn't about people seeing him or he'd rather people not, you know what I'm saying? It was like a shy guy, but that'd be something that you would never think you would hear. That was the way he was. And it's cool. We're all one way or the other and different at different aspects. But man, just like I said, my brother was such a great dude. And like I said, I thought it was time. And if there was ever going to be a time to do it, it was then. So they caught me at the right time. That's what I told my wife. I said, before I'd done the interview with him, I said, I didn't think I'd ever do this. And she said, well, do you think you don't need to? But I was just a little leery, like you said, as far as, and actually I talked to you, you made me even more leery when you said, well,
I kind of felt bad. I felt like, I should have been, trying to put him at ease, but I was just being honest, man. Like it made me nervous, and I was very pleasantly surprised, because I'm not going to lie, I was prepared that night as I watched it, if in case you were watching it live, because I had asked you, I said, did you get to see this ahead of time? And you said, well, they're very protective of it. Like, they sent me a link that I could watch like once on a computer and all this jazz, and you're like, I don't think I'm going to do it. I remember we had that conversation in like the cigar store in Corinth before that show there in Boonville or Corinth, and I was like, yeah, I get that, but I was prepared. Like, if that show would have been a double cross, for lack of a better word, to get a phone call and be like, turn the recorder on right now. We're fixing to address this shit right now. And that call didn't come. But then when I talked to you a couple of days later, I realized you really didn't watch it that night. You kind of waited a couple of days and had already gotten some feedback on it by the time you saw it, I'm sure. And like Darla, that would have broke her heart if that thing would have been a negative, some kind of slander of Eddie. I don't. She would have been absolutely as livid and more brokenhearted than you probably. Maybe not as livid, but more brokenhearted. But yeah, I figured like, well, we're going to be loading up driving somewhere if this is anything other than what they present it to be. But again, pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, and like I said, Gene, man, I just like I said, if I'm pleased with what is out there, I told my wife I didn't think, anybody have, I mean, as far as anybody's opinion, as long as I'm happy with it and don't think it was anything negative. And all I wanted was the story to be told and be positive and everything. And I don't think, and they can call it whatever they want to call it, but I don't think anything was bad. I mean, on it and everything.
No.
That's what I'd asked them. I said, guys, can y'all not do some kind of positive show? And, when the guys was here recording with me, and they said, Doug, it's about ratings, and positive don't do ratings. Negativity does.
I mean, the thing that scared me, and I think I told you this, and I was like, it's not called Bright Side of the Ring, man. Like,
Right.
They call it that for a reason. I don't know. But, it really came through how much Medusa cared about him. And I love the footage that she had of, like, from Christmas and, and the letters, like, that was a great aspect and showed you another side of Eddie and your whole family, for that matter. So I thought that was really great. They had her on there. And I'm going to say this here, and if you want me to cut it out, I'll cut it out. But I feel it needs addressed somewhere, and I've said this in a couple of other interviews people have done with me about the book. The only criticism I've heard about the book is there's been like people that, and that's the kind of people that knock everything. We're just like, oh, there's no negative stories in there, and it's like, do you really think Eddie's brother's book is going to have negative stories in there? Like, why would it? Like, you say in there, like, hey, I'm not saying we were saints. I'm not saying we were perfect. But why would you tell negative stories even if you had any? Why would your book be where somebody would find that? If somebody wants to find negative stuff, it's out there everywhere else, and you can't stop that. But you're not putting it in your book. That's a tribute to your brother. Why would anybody think that?
Exactly, Gene. And here's the thing: why do we? Don't get me wrong. Everybody wants to make money, right? But listen. I'm so sick of negativity that, and like I said, I want to get my brothers, people that the generations that didn't see my brother, get his story out there and let them see his greatness as far as working wise, booking wise, and everything. And like I said, it's been 30 years. And if people tell you the interest is the most requested, he's one of the most requested guys ever to be on the show. I mean, to me, that said something right there. And I thought, well, you know what? This would be a cool time to get it out. And but no, I'm not a negative. I don't even like negativity. I mean, why can't we be positive and everything? And like I said, it's a great story. I just wish my brother would have lived a longer life. I wish he'd still been here with us today. Yeah. And I think he would have done great things if we could ever got him to stop wrestling. But but we would have never got him to stop wrestling because that was it. But I thought in WCW at the time maybe he would slow down, but what he could have just all he had to do was book, and he was under the contract. He was making a couple $100,000 a year, and but no, he still wanted to go on the road and wrestle. He wanted to earn his money and wanted to work. Not just work in the office, but actually wrestle. And you wasn't gonna get that out of him. And like I said, he worked hard every night. There wasn't no taking no nights off or anything.
Man, one of the most powerful things that I've heard you say, and I don't know if we included it in the book. We probably weaved it in there somewhere, but I remember us sitting like at your dining room table talking about stuff about the book. And I asked you, I said, Doug, we were talking about the wreck and the aftermath of the wreck. And I said, Doug, do you think if those doctors would have went in there and told Eddie, hey, if you never wrestle again, there's a good chance you could live to be, a long life and live to be an old man. But if you wrestle, we can tell you right now, you're probably not going to live past 1995. I said, do you think he would have still chosen to wrestle? And you kind of thought about it for a minute, and you looked me right in the face and you said, he absolutely would have. It meant that much to him.
Yeah.
And that's a powerful statement, but I don't doubt you one bit. For everything that book told us, that's 100% true, right?
That's exactly right, Gene. I mean, that was, I mean, he would have accepted that, and that's what he would have took. He would have took that and went on with it. And I mean, that's, like I said, it's just we hate what happened at the end and everything, but I mean, he lived his life to the fullest. And I mean, like I said, he done more in his life than guys in our profession. A lot of guys in our profession would do in 3 lifetimes. And but that's why I think a lot of times, and you hate to say it or whatever, but there's a whole lot of jealousy. And I mean, there's so many egos in this business, and everybody wants to be the main booker and everything. And when they don't get called to a booking job, and my brother got called about a dozen, I mean, it gets heat with some people and everything. And I mean, it's just, it is what it is. And, we listen to it, and you had people when my brother was alive and booking, you had people that would knock him and this and that. But why would the guys call and want him to come and book their territories if,
Another thing too you think about is for him to be able to accomplish all the things he did. Think of what he could have accomplished if there wasn't so many people standing in his way, blocking him from doing a lot of things that he could have done. Those jealous types that had positions of power who made sure, all right, we're going to let him accomplish this much, but we're going to make sure he doesn't have the opportunities that he deserves. Imagine what he could have done, but he still, in spite of all that,
that's what I told you. And the cool thing to me is a small town boy growing up in a town of 6,000 people, going on to do what he done, following my dad's footsteps, and I also followed my dad's footsteps. But I mean, accomplishing the goals that he set out to accomplish from when he was a kid, writing those in those notebooks, those cards with his friend's name on them, and carrying and showing Jerry Jarrett and everything. I mean, it's just, people, like I said, people didn't know that, didn't ever hear that or anything. And I think that's, like I said, my brother was just he was really intelligent just as a person, but as booking and working, I mean, his working style to me was just phenomenal. I mean, just watch some of his matches and everything. I mean, with the 95% of the guys, he'd be calling everything that was going on and everything. I mean, just phenomenal matches. I mean, you wouldn't see them when you was a kid.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're listening to this, folks, one great thing about Eddie's career is that it took place in a time where most of it was on TV. Like you can go on YouTube and you can see, I mean, there's every stage of his career, the old Memphis stuff. There's you've searched deep enough. There's stuff from Oklahoma. There's stuff from UWF Mid-South, Continental, WCW. It's all there. You can go back and relive all of the great moments, things that he booked, things that he did, and that'll keep his legacy alive forever.
That's exactly right, Gene. And I mean, like I said before, there was a Ricky and Robert rock and roll. There was a Ricky and Eddie and everything. That's you talking about two young kids there together in Oklahoma. That's some cool stuff to watch. And they was tag champs out there. Then they come back here, and there was tag champs here. And then they had the second version of the Tupelo concession stand brawl with Onita and Fuji. And everybody knows Onita, who wound up taking that back to Japan, and it started FMW. And FMW wound up being one of the biggest things there ever was in Japan, as far as starting like a different culture of hardcore wrestling and everything. And I mean, Onita was like a rock star over there. To this day, he still is.
Yeah, huge influence over there. And I love that we've got that picture of Eddie and Ricky on the back cover of the book. And I think it meant a lot to Ricky too. He seemed, that he really loved seeing that as well.
Oh yeah, that's really cool. And like I said, all the pictures, the cool pictures in the book, Gene. What about the picture of a young Eddie and Andre? And there's just so
Yes.
many. There's so many different.
Tiger Mask, them holding up the light heavyweight belt, and
what about?
Spectrum.
I mean, there's so many different pictures. What about the pictures of Eddie when he was in high school, and myself, Eddie, and the world heavyweight champion Dory Funk Jr. And
Danny
everything.
Hodge, and
right.
Pictures of him and your dad, and the pictures alone make it worthwhile.
Oh man, I just think it's like I said. I was pleased with the episode, and I loved the way the book turned out. Like I said, I hope every one of y'all that get the book, I hope y'all enjoyed it as much as we did putting it together and everything. And man, it's just really like I said, all this kind of come together. And like Gene said, I don't know. And if you look into things too much, you might scratch your head and everything. But I think just all those come together at the right time and at the right place, and everything just worked out.
100%. I love that you. I love that you went through with the Dark Side episode. I love that that we got the book done. And I love that you do this podcast, because I've told people for a long, long time that I truly believe in my heart that Eddie would have been one of the first people to take the podcast medium and use that to continue to tell stories. And I think he'd have been all over it.
Hey, who was the first guy ever done a
shoot interview? That's right. And we talk about that in the book as well, folks. Check that out.
And also, Gene, listen to all these guys that you heard say right after he done it. Oh, people, shouldn't nobody ever do this.
Yeah.
I don't know why anybody ever do this. Now everybody and their brother does it, right? And
no one hasn't. You name me somebody who hasn't done multiples. Most people went back to that well as many times as they can get paid. But right. I don't care. You take the most hardcore, old school guys. They've all done it. And Eddie was the first, and all those guys that wanted to string him up, he killed the business. They all went and did it. He was smart enough to do it first. And
you know what? One of the funniest things, and I'll never forget this in my life, Terry Funk, me and him were in Japan, sitting in the lobby together, and he said, Dougie, hey, we just going to take all the stories to our grave, ain't we? I said, do what, Terry? He said, ain't nobody ever going to hear about anything that we've done. We're just going to take all these stories to our grave. And the next thing I know, he's writing a book, and he's doing shoot interviews. and everything else. But that gets over with me. But I mean, he saw how things changed.
Yes, and thank God he did, man, because of Terry Funk, such great stories, and it would have been a real shame if the legacy of the Funk family hadn't been able to get told in some of those books and some of those interviews that he did. And speaking of Terry, we haven't quite figured out how we're gonna get this out to people, but you sent me a great collection of voicemails from the Funker to you and your family over the years, which are I was tremendous getting to hear Terry's voice and him talking to you guys and talking about his affection for, your family and your brother and your dad and everything. And at some point we're going to find a way to share those with people, because they need to be heard. It's really great. And you can really tell how much, you guys meant to Terry and those messages.
Is that not some of the coolest stuff, Gene? And like I said, with the stuff Terry told me about how much my dad helped him and everything, when my dad went out there to Amarillo, my dad worked with him, and he said, Sonny, you just we'll never know how much your daddy really helped me. And you didn't hear Terry Funk say that about people.
That's so cool. And, and that's the thing, like I said that about Eddie's career. Unfortunately, your dad came around at a time that, there's stuff of his later stuff and, like refereeing in Mid-South and some of the later Memphis stuff. Man, we go through and read those results and like some of those matches with the Luthez and the Funks and stuff he did in Texas, and all, like, man, if there was footage where we could go back and see those matches, how great would that be? But it just doesn't exist. They weren't,
right.
They didn't have the technology back then. But luckily, with Eddie's career and your career and a lot of Tommy's. Tommy bridges the gap. Tommy's got a lot of matches back before they were taping stuff, but he's got a lot of matches on tape too. So he's
right.
You can document a lot of Mr. Rich's career, but there was a lot before too.
That mysterious Mr. R, wasn't that what he said?
Yes, the very mysterious Mr. R that he swears was Brad Armstrong. I don't know. We're gonna get that. We're gonna solve that mystery one of these days. But man, this has been a great episode.
Hey, it's your age, Gene, and when are we doing the 20? What are we doing the sign?
That is going to be Sunday, July 27th, 6 p.m. Central Time. And again, go ahead and get those orders in. You can Venmo at Real Doug Gilbert. It's $50 for a signed book and a picture. If you want multiple pictures, email douggilbertpodcast@outlook.com. We can discuss, adding on an extra one if you want, like one of Doug and one of the Memphis Mafia, whatever. We can sort that out, but you got to get those orders in ahead of time, because once we're in the live, there's no way to do the orders while he's signing the books and everything. So we need to get them in, preferably, like I say, by the 26th, absolute latest noon on the 27th. But let's get them in early, because he may run out of books.
And like Gene said, you will see me sign actually the book, and you will know it's coming to you right then. I mean, so
yes,
it's not going to be a month or 2 months or 3 months or nothing. It's going to be in the mail the next day.
Yep.
But anyway, Gene, hey man, I loved this show, and finally being you getting to talk about this. Like I said, I couldn't say a word about it before it come out. They told me they was very, I had to sign a deal that said I wouldn't say nothing. Actually, if the people saw me on Bradshaw and Briscoe, I think, is that the name of the podcast? John
stories with Briscoe and Bradshaw.
I couldn't. They asked me about it on there then, and I said I can't really. Which they might have cut that out. I hadn't saw the podcast.
I think they clipped that. I don't remember it coming up during the show. I think they were nice enough to clip that out for you.
Okay, yeah, they did ask about it. Well, I didn't say nothing about it, but they asked me, and I said I can't talk about it. So
the week they put out that teaser video of the day it came out on Twitter and everywhere, it was sharing that the season 6, and they flashed Eddie up there and you talking. I had at least 24 people message me within 5 minutes. Oh my gosh, did you know Eddie's going to be on Dark Side of the Ring? And I was like, oh yeah. I was like, well, you didn't tell us. Like, I wasn't supposed to.
Yeah.
I was like,
it's kind of one of them hush hush deals.
Exactly.
But Gene, man, hey, I've enjoyed this, and I know we've kept it. Like I said, we've got Tommy on here and myself, and we try to talk about both our stuff. But like I said, Tommy having some commitments this week and having some things he had to do. So me and you finally got to answer some people's questions. And I know, like I said, a lot of people had sent you stuff about it. A lot of people have sent me stuff about it and everything. But this gets to actually answer the people's questions. And if you've got any more questions that me and Gene haven't, if Gene hadn't asked me something that you wanted to know about it, just send the questions and
bring them on.
And we'll sure answer everything. But listen, man, I sure appreciate everybody listening, and just follow us and everything. And like I said, we'll talk about whatever y'all want to talk about. We love the wrestling fans, old school fans, new school fans. We love everybody that loves us and supported us, and that hasn't supported us, and maybe just be listening to see what they can hear. But anyway, we love old school wrestling. We love hardcore wrestling, which we think started down here in the South, where other people think it started other places. But anyway, but like I said, one of the cool things is my brother Ricky Morton and with Onita Fuji and Tupelo. That's a cool, still a cool highlight for me, and to think that Onita carried that back over to Japan to start FMW. That's a cool thing. Like I said, he's a big figure over there, and he was in like Parliament or whatever, Gene. He was like a big politician. I mean, he's big time, everything as far as wrestler, politician, everything. But anyway, all that, I love talking about all those stories and everything else for listening to you. And I've had a great time this week. And if, like I said, if you want to know anything else, just send it to Gene and he will ask us and everything. But listen, Gene, thanks for everything, and peace. Everybody be cool.
relive the glory days of Memphis wrestling with the Retro Wrestling Review USWA podcast. Each week, we go back in time to review USWA Championship Wrestling from the 1990s, episode by episode. Join us for watch-alongs, behind-the-scenes stories, and exclusive interviews with people who were there and lived it. Whether you grew up watching it or you're discovering it for the first time, this podcast is your ringside seat to Memphis wrestling history. It's all a part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Listen now at uswapodcast.com.
In the heart of Tennessee, born with pride, Doug and Tommy taking rings in stride. Memphis legends never backing down, wrestling warriors, they wear the crown. Used to be away, glory in their veins, fighting legends breaking chains. In the square circle they made their name, podcast champions, it's their claim to fame. On the mic they roar, on the map they soar, dangerous conversations, fans wanting more. Podcast kings ruling the waves, Memphis wrestling raising the stage. From title belts to Hall of Fame, Doug and Tommy carved the name. Fists of fury and hearts of gold. Every story, every fight retold. Tales of glory, laughter, cry. Tennessee warriors with hearts open wide. In the ring or on the air, legends living without a care. On the mic they roar, on the mat they soar, dangerous conversations, fans wanting more. Podcast kings ruling the waves, Memphis wrestling raising the stage.